Hello everybody, yeah, it's Warhammer here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on the Pillar of Bone, playing as the forces of the Empire against the forces of the Greenskins. And for this build, I've decided to go with something that's similar to some of the builds I used to run against Greenskins, but revamp things a little bit. We've ditched the steam tank, and I've decided to bring the war wagons with mortars, as well as a heavier skirmish presence than usual. So going over the composition here, still rocking Boris Todbringer. Now he has been reworked a bit in the last patch. Now the good old Crush the Weak is no longer as strong of a debuff. It doesn't grant leadership debuffs, but it is still a solid enough -5 melee defense and melee attack, and in exchange we now get Blood Roar on the Griffin, which is essentially a straight buff in this match because I don't normally if I was going for a Terror Bomb build, I'd be having to bring an extra Amber Wizard. This way you do lose some -4 leadership debuff, but in general it's an improvement. Besides that, we do of course have the White Cloak of Ulrich debuffing enemy melee attack further, which is nice. Greenskins don't have the best combat stats, so it's a strong double whammy there. Midland Runefang for the insane healing, and Foe Seeker just to keep him invigorated and keep Boris in good fighting shape right up to late game, because that 18% vigor does add up. Besides that, we do have a Jade Wizard. Now he's coming in with Earthblood as well as Shield of Thorns, and of course a Power Stone to get some extra winds of magic, and he's really there to support our Cav. And our Cav contingent is not as big as usual. It's actually just the 2 Demigryph Knights over here, as well as the Knights of the Blazing Sun. Now, Knights of the Blazing Sun, in my opinion, a very, very good Cav choice in most matchups, but especially in this one, they are very resistant to magic damage. If you get hit by an Effigy at the Git, they won't lose models to Effigy. Foot of Gork doesn't do as much damage to them. Spirit Leech with the Death Hag now is not, or with the Troll Hag is no longer not as effective, so it's good. Besides that, front line composed entirely of spearmen with shields. We had nothing fancy there. We don't even have the Sigmar Suns. Went super cheapo there. In front of that, we've got some Pistoliers vanguarded forward, looking to screen and kite down my opponent. Some Outriders behind that to give us some AP punch that doesn't need to get into close quarters, because obviously you don't want to get snared down by various debuffs for the Greenskins, and especially the Rampages are very annoying. And then 2 Mortars to really force the issue, force my opponent to advance on me. Now for my opponent's build, he has gone with a very wide Green Tide here, and for his Lord he's rocking Wurtzag, so going old school. Nothing new and newfangled and fancy here. He's coming in with Foot of Gork, of course, which is very strong in Empire Cav. Knights of Blazing Sun will still suffer a lot from it, and if your opponent brought Reichsguard or Knights, it just smushes them. Besides that, Fists of Gork, strong single target buff, though do keep in mind it doesn't work as well against Knights of the Blazing Sun, once again, because that magic resist. But against something like Demigryphs, it can really help your boar boys fight a lot better. Bonewood Staff, of course, for that mini-wah. Swilly Beast for the extra ones of magic. Wurtzag's Revenge, which I don't think is worth it. I think that's a waste of about 200 gold. Again, it can make my caster miscast a little bit more, but not that strong. War Pain of Wurtzag makes Wurtzag a little beefier, a little tougher to snipe. Otherwise, can help your nearby boys stick around. Power of the Wah for the Winds of Magic, and then Effigy of the Git. So very strong single target snare. And one of the reasons actually that I put the Jade Wizard back here kind of awkwardly in a corner is actually because I was a little worried that we'd see some Vindictive Glare and Rampage sniping and or attempts at that sort of thing with a Night Goblin War Boss or potentially Skarsnik. So that's part of the reason why we're hiding back there. We do have 2 Goblin Big Bosses, both coming in with... Actually, that guy's not even kitted out, but this guy does have the They Need Stabbing. Good support unit, gives you some immediate leadership support on a flank where you need it, because there's quite a bit of cav here. We've got some Savage Orc Big Guns, we've got more Savage Orc Boar Boys over here, and some Durkit Squigs, so that gives you some leadership support where you need it immediately, and they're pretty nippy and a decent combatant, so if they get on top of my caster, they could kill him very quickly. Besides that, front line is a mixed bag. We've got some Savage Orcs in there. We've got some Big Guns. We've got some Night Goblins, AP Loonies, of course. Those guys are kind of still busted. So they're almost an insta-lock nowadays in basically every Greenskin build. And then a significant skirmish force here that includes the Mogrebs, Magi, Marauders. And we really do want to evade these. I really don't want to be taking shots from the Mogrebs, Marauders. So we're going to pull back and kind of wasting some of their ammo here. Because if they're shooting at my Pistoliers, you know, they're not getting as much value as they would if they were shooting Demigryph Knights, which really would be a great target. In the meantime, Savage Orcs are starting to take a pounding from the Mortar, which is unleashing that steady hail on them. Unfortunately, Boris does take quite a beating there from the Mogrebs Marauders, and although I do try to dodge, it's not as successful as I would have liked. Savage Orcs continue to get pounded on. Probably should have shifted target to some of the Big Guns or some units like that, but, you know, get some damage in there. We knocked off about 8 models and a couple thousand HP. In the meantime, spears spreading out to provide coverage, and we are kiting back. There's no obligation to engage if I don't feel like it, and so we're just going to pull back, and because of that, my opponent is not able to get a full engage. His cavalry is all the way out here, his infantry is lagging behind. In the meantime, this cavalry contingent over here is kind of out of position. There's a Wartsag there, and there's a Goblin Big Boss, but I can flex over to support that very, very quickly. And that's actually what we're going to be doing. Now you can see the mortar bombardment shifting over to the Orc Big Guns there, smacking them around and knocking them off by about 1300 HP. So that's quite the achievement there. And now the Pistoliers are able to start opening fire. The Outriders are in an area where they can fire. And we're going to see a Foot of Gore going down on my poor Demigryphs, who have been snared by an effigy of the Git. It does stomp on them, and while it does look spectacular and staggers those knights, one, I don't believe it was overcast, and two, these Demigryphs have a lot of HP per model, so it doesn't affect them as much. So you can see there we lost one model and a bit of HP, and immediately countercharged the Boar Boys, and this is going to be a bit of a disastrous fight. There are some big guns there. There are Savage Orc Boar Boys, but this is a lot of Empire Cav. And Boris is right there. Now, granted, he's getting snared down by the Durkin Squigs. We're running for dear life. You can see the Outrider fire pouring in. Artillery fire continuing to provide support over here. Pistoliers shifting flanks just to provide coverage from a different angle on these Night Goblins. But over here, Boris is going to be able to extricate himself through the Savage Orcs. One of the things with Savage Orcs is they're not that fast at mulching through infantry. They can work, but it's not insanely potent. Over here, Shield of Thorns does go down, giving me plus 60% weapon strength. I actually overcast it. And so these Knights of Blazing Sun are going to spike to 59 weapon strength, which is pretty insane. We also do get a hefty little bit of a damage there on the Demigryphs. Keep in mind, against Savage Orc Boar Boys, they don't have much armor to begin with. Big Guns only have 50, so we are able to chew through them pretty effectively. Big Guns kind of wasting that magic damage against the Knights of Blazing Sun, and a rout does take place. And once Terror kicks in, the Empire Cav is fast enough to just exploit that and run these guys down. Spears here pushing through on the Savage Orcs. Another Foot of Gore going down, trying once again to nail these guys, but there's no effigy to pin me in place. It clips some of these guys, knocks off a few models on the Demigryphs, but really, who cares? And we've actually buckled this entire flank for my opponent. So that is a very big win for the Empire. That basically just leaves the Night Goblins over here, the AP Loonies, and some Savage Orcs over here, but a whole bunch of stuff that's just isolated. Now, my opponent does get a WoW, so the Savage Orc Boar Boys are going to pile in to my Knights of Blazing Sun here, to the Demigryph Knights. But once again, we got Spear support coming in. We're getting that surround. Boris is in there providing Crush the Weak debuff, though at the moment it's not active due to the fact that these guys are not low enough on leadership. He still does get the White Cloak of Ulrich, though. More Spears piling in. And my opponent's Cav is not actually pushing in, so a bit of hesitation here, a bit of miss micro, perhaps busy elsewhere trying to get these Spider Riders around the flank, whatever the case may be. They're not firing. Mortar fire raining on Mogul's Marauders. And as the Goblin Big Boss tries to push forward, tries to get a little cheeky, he takes a volley of gunnery fire and is forced to run like hell. So we are slowly but surely whittling these threats down. You can see the Jade Wizard here backing off, having gotten some healing in on this cavalry blob. Knights of Blazing Sun now down to about half strength. Boris, we can see his heal cap now. But we can just leave these spears here. Yes, they will lose. They'll get swarmed by a tide of green, but it's okay. they fight for the Empire, and they'll fight well. And so we're just going to abandon those poor spearmen to their fates, let them bog down the enemy. In the meantime, the Empire Cav mob can pivot out of the trap and look for new openings, either against these Boar Boys or against these Big Guns, whatever the case may be, and find new targets. Now, unfortunately, a bit of a miscast there. I'm not entirely sure what happened. The Earthblood actually went down on the Jade Wizard when it was supposed to go down over here. One of those situations where you start a cast and it gets obstructed until you re-click on the target. They self-cast it, so that sucked. But what can you do? Not the end of the world. Balance power is slowly starting to shift in our favor. Unfortunately, I do screw up here and let my Pistoliers get caught by Warsag and the Savage Orc with Big Guns. So yeah, these guys just straight up don't have a good time. Outriders here getting pressured back. Goblin Big Boss pushing through, but unfortunately some of the rallying spears are going to make an attempt to push in before breaking from proximity. But now the Cav mob is swinging back, and my opponent, as you can see, is very strung out. These guys are not going to do very much to my Cav mob. These troops here are way far back. Look at all these guys out of position. Mogos and Marauders way back there, and so it's just a push of like these few units and the little heroic goon squad here. So we're actually going to countercharge here with the Pistoliers, trying to bypass Wartsag, trying to get in on the Savage Orc Big Guns. You can see the Outriders pouring fire in. Boris does dive in. We've got Earthblood going down again, this time actually hitting the target and healing all these troops. We're able to sweep through the Night Goblins and get a rear charge on these Savage Orc Boar Boys while my opponent is not paying attention. And that's, of course, going to net some massive value. Big Guns getting pounded by mortar fire, just not having good time at all, getting mulched there. Those certainly Knights of Blazing Sun here getting caught out a bit. Demigryphs with their higher mass are able to kind of push past a little bit. But the Knights of Blazing Sun do get snared and are kind of getting dragged into the muck, which definitely sucks. But in the meantime, Goblin Big Boss here trying to get in on the Pistoliers, but we're able to just throw them into skirmish mode. The lone Goblin Big Boss here kind of launching his last charge against the Outriders, but at this point it's just too little too late. Balance of power shifting is decisively in my favor, and really there isn't much my opponent can do. We're actually going to focus after the Goblin Big Boss here, then Wartsag. That guy just goes down like a 9-pin, flung from the wolf, but the wolf survives. At least the puppy survives, so that's good, right? But at this point, my opponent does decide to GG out. So, going over the build here, I think it's a decent build against Greenskins. Not sure I prefer it to the old Demigriff Knights of the Blazing Sun Steam Tank combo. I do like my Steam Tank builds in this matchup, but it was definitely fun to see the Mortar Wagon do some work, just pumping out that consistent damage against the Savage Orcs and the big guns. Keep in mind, these guys are chevroned up, so you're looking at a 650, 700 gold unit, and you're getting some decent value, chunking them for a lot of HP. Not getting the most damage, but it's really the HP damage that matters there. Outriders, of course, getting some key damage output on the Goblin Big Bosses and Wartsag and some of the Boar Boys. Same with the Pistoliers, just getting good value there. I think if you want to contest a skirmish game with Empire, and you don't necessarily have to, you're not obligated to, you can always just go super heavy on heavy cav and ignore the Goblin skirmish fire, but if you do want to contest that game, I think you do have to bring at least a few Outriders, because they will gun down Wolf Rider Archers and Spider Rider Archers pretty effectively. Spears held rather well for their cost. Boris didn't get a lot of kills, surprisingly, but did manage to dish out some major pain to the enemy lords. He managed to snipe out that big boss at the end, managed to pressure out the Savage Orc War Boys, forcing those terror outs, and just proving generally effective there. So I was pretty satisfied with his performance. For my opponent's build, I think the main problem here wasn't so much the build. I think the build was actually all right. Nowadays, I'd probably try to get the Boar Boy, the Black Orc Big Boss in there, probably for the immune psychology, and besides that, though, I don't think the build here is very bad. I think the main problem with this build, with the battle here for my opponent here, was that he didn't engage all at once, or didn't get good engagements. Initially, we got that engagement that was basically just the big guns and the Savage Orc Boar Boys against my entire blob of Cav and Boris. Later in the game, Boar Boy big guns with a tiny bit of infantry support once again against this massive mob of Cav, and there just wasn't a consistent engagement. Not all of the Orc infantry was getting into the fight. Yes, some of them racked up impressive kill counts, but they were not all engaging at once. So I was kind of able to take this army apart piecemeal, and I think if the Orc tide had it all at once, things would have looked a lot more grim for the Empire here. Because ultimately, this is a kind of scary force. You can definitely pressure units like Outriders and Pistoliers with the light Cav, and with this much combat Cav, you can contest the Cav game. You do have two heroes in there providing debuffs. You got Warsack providing buffs. If you push in even some Savage Orcs because they're faster, some of the big guns. Honestly, I don't know if down chevroning the Savage Orcs would give you the money to get Savage Orc big guns, but that could also be a good investment just to get them a little faster into supporting the Cav engagements. But yeah, I think the biggest misplay here was just not engaging all at once, and that just ended up being a bit painful. But regardless, well played to my opponent Tulkas here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and had some fun watching some Empire play and seeing some Mortar action and Demigriff action. As usual, leave your thoughts, opinions, and comments down below, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.